She teaches gender studies and social justice courses and says she's seen a spike in student interest.
We've seen our majors grow, and in fact, social justice was one of the fastest growing majors of the units that are being sort of restructured in the new school of social and cultural analysis. So it is, again, disappointing because it's clear that the students want these courses.
All right, guys. So this here today, I think, is a prime example of why winning the 2024 election was so important on a deeper level, right? Obviously, we're going to talk about the issues that define this election year, the economy, immigration, foreign policy. But there was also a very significant cultural statement either way that this election was going to make. And I'm going to say right here, you know, we really did mean it when we said 2024 is the final battle. America itself is literally on the line. And now we are beginning to reap, I believe, the rewards of actually winning on November 5th, which is, again, not just that like Trump's going to take office and do things politically, but also that the mandate, the message this sent to basically everyone in the entire country is now giving us the social and cultural capital to push back on things like the woke, like DEI, like cancel culture. And don't get me wrong, that was already starting to happen in the build up to Trump's election, right? You started to see, I think, one of the silver linings of 2020 is everything that's happened the past 4 years really did wake a lot of people up. But that election that happened just now has confirmed it. And now we are in a position, guys. The story here today is that the University of Iowa is apparently closing down its women's study department. According to this, the University of Iowa has announced it would close the gender, women's studies, and sexuality studies department. Like, yeah, that's definitely such a legitimate education, right? As public universities in the state continue to shed its DEI initiatives. This is, of course, after the Board of Regents of the University of Iowa system decided to vote to shut down all of its DEI stuff in the universities. And one professor at this school does not sound all that happy. Take a listen. It's pretty hilarious. But again, what can they do about it, right? We won convincingly. This is now what we get to enjoy. Take a listen.
It's disappointing. It's sad.
She teaches gender studies and social justice courses and says she's seen a spike in student interest.
We've seen our majors grow, and in fact, social justice was one of the fastest growing majors of the units that are being sort of restructured in the new school of social and cultural analysis. So it is, again, disappointing because it's clear that the students want these courses.
Murillo also says students who've gone through the programs are contributing to Iowa's workforce.
You love to see it, folks. Do us a big favor. Make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Why should you subscribe? Because it's the best way to ensure we can keep bringing you these videos. So you heard her there, right? Apparently, they're going to be cutting the social justice major. That's right, because social justice was actually a major, right? That is the state of the American education system. Now she's very bitter, obviously, that it's being gotten rid of because, oh no. And you know, it's funny. She said it was a fast growing major. Students actually wanted it. It's like, okay, you know, I'm sure a lot of students would like to major in I don't know, drinking beer and partying if that were a major. But, you know, what you're essentially doing here is taking all of these kids' tuition money, giving them a completely frivolous and useless and frankly, I would argue counterproductive education, okay, in these majors. Like, they're actually taking you mentally backwards. You're losing IQ points doing it, kind of the opposite of what's supposed to happen in education. And you're essentially, again, scamming the students, putting them in debt so you can teach them this nonsense. It's just like, okay, you know, we don't care. And just to make a point on that front, let's just remember a few examples of the type of stuff that was being taught in these DEI classes, some of which, by the way, were not even like electives or a major you could choose. Some universities were literally, and still are, by the way, we need to do the full job here, requiring students to take classes like this.
Do serious justice work. And it's a strategy. It's a strategy to pretend that, like, all white people are individuals. Right? Especially when you look at the wealth numbers.
So you're not saying we're all individuals. I never worked at Chick-fil-A. I'm Jewish and I'm a member of the LGBT community. And you're putting me in this group of people who supposedly work at Chick-fil-A. You're an instructor here. You teach a course and you subject students to this kind of hateful ass rhetoric. And I think it is a damn shame that people go to this university and you subject them to that. Have you ever looked at your Rate My Professor reviews? You subject people to negative rhetoric against white people when you don't know every white person that goes to this university. You don't know anybody's struggle.
No, this is, I feel like this is a naive joke. I know that's where you're at. I'm at a different place.
You said that every suburban community in Georgia raises white supremacists. How can you possibly say that? You don't know what every white community in Georgia does. That is an extreme statement. That's an extreme statement.
Is it? I live in one, so.
I live in one too, and I didn't have the typical heterosexual, no, I'm talking now. I did not have the same heterosexual experience that people in these communities had. So how can you generalize me into this stereotype when you don't know my experiences?
So you just asked him a question, I was going to answer it, okay?
I don't feel like he's answered my question at all. I didn't even realize, y'all yelled at me while I was trying to ask my question.
Yeah, what a tragedy. People like this, at least in the University of Iowa system, are not going to be having jobs very likely anymore. You know, they're going to be cut, or they're going to have to teach different classes that don't involve calling all white people racist and literally just complete nonsense like this. Yeah, you love to see it. And what I'd also like to note is, guys, you know, we're talking right now about Iowa because that news just came this week, but this has been a nationwide movement, majorly, right, obviously, as you can imagine, in Republican states, but even a state like North Carolina, that is a swing state, earlier this year closed their DEI offices, eliminating 59 DEI positions, which actually saved the school $17 million, according to this report. University of Texas systems also did it. A lot of other Republican states a couple of years ago, this is a little bit older, but they banned critical race theory, etc. But I would like to gloat for a little bit and remind everyone that this is a nationwide university movement that actually started out of my school, right? The University of Florida. So that's where it all began.
DEI is on its way OUT in some states. Today, the University of Florida had announced that they are going to be laying off every single person that they had hired in order to run their DEI program. University of Florida has closed the office of the Chief Diversity Officer, eliminated DEI positions and administrative appointments, and halted DEI-focused contracts with outside vendors. And if you're thinking like, well, how did they do that? Let me show you. You see, back in 2023, Governor DeSantis had signed into law that he was going to pull out state funding from the DEI program, specifically regarding education. He banned the DEI initiatives in public colleges, calling them a discriminatory practice. He states this bill says the whole experiment with DEI is coming to an end in the state of Florida. We are eliminating the DEI programs, which is just now starting to take into effect. Florida is not the only one. The Iowa House today has announced that it is also going to restrict DEI programs at the universities of Iowa and the Iowa State University. Tuition hikes will be capped, and diversity, equity, and inclusion programs would be restricted at Iowa's public university under this bill that had been passed by the Iowa House on Thursday. And to state that the bill stops the pursuit of these distractions and ideological agendas and reiterates the focus on higher education system back to the pursuit of academic excellence, which should have been a point from the start. Also,
yeah, so I think honestly something miraculous has happened over the past 4 years, which is suddenly the culture war, which is historically just like a constant losing battle for conservatives. You know, the left keeps pushing, they keep rolling down the slippery slope, actually started to reverse itself back in the other direction. And you're starting to see the signs of that. Now, of course, you may be asking, Vince, why did you say in the beginning that this is very closely connected to the 2024 election? Like, it has nothing to do, right? Trump winning didn't directly impact the policies that Florida did, or Iowa, or Texas, or North Carolina. Well, the reason I say all of that is because really you were in this position where that election was going to mark a crossroads, right? And even on the practical level politically, it's just straight up going to be harder, for instance, for the Department of Justice to try, or the federal government to try try to get involved or strip federal funding. Hey, universities aren't allowed to do that because we're now going to be in charge of the Department of Justice. But also on top of that, what has happened now that the liberals are so defeated after November 5th, is they really do not have the political or social or cultural capital to push back on this stuff, right? What are they going to say? They're going to obviously scream and cry about it. But ultimately, what's the message we get to send in response? Well, as we saw in the literal popular vote, we are the majority. You guys are the minority. Keep crying, but we're going to basically keep pushing forward, right? The mandate doesn't just apply to like Trump trying to pass bills or something. It also applies to the fact that conservatives, our culture, our sort of ideas are now the norm in America, not theirs, number one. Number two, though, I also think it's kind of a symbol, honestly, of the rebellion you're starting to see in the youth, actually in the conservative direction, right? Obviously, Trump among Gen Z voters actually got like record numbers in 2024. He won young men, for instance, outright in the battleground states. So you're already starting to see that uprising. But now these universities, which we all know historically were used as the indoctrination centers for the other side, now they're starting to push back. Okay, we still got a lot of problems, by the way, to fix in academia. And, what they're probably going to do is try to teach social justice under a new name, under a new class, right? These professors, they don't stop. But this is objectively a victory, a very good step in the right direction. And again, that is why elections matter. Okay, because frankly, despite the fact that Kamala Harris was claiming to be a sensible moderate, you guys know for a fact, if they won this election, they dropped the cancel culture stuff, they dropped the DEI talk for a little bit because they were trying to win, immediately would have gone back to it, immediately would have made it 10 times more radical. And now we dodged a bullet. And again, now we are in the position to make change for the positive. So that's very good. America's back, folks. It's coming back. All right, 2025, our year. Let's do it. All right, with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.